Hi. As you can see, this is going to be a solo video. Nate isn't here, so, you know, it doesn't really matter because, you know, this is a video, I'm making it, it's on my page, it's me, blah blah, get over it. Okay, so there are some things I wanted to touch on. I'm sure by the title, which is what's grabbing your attention, I'm a wrestling fan, obviously, and I wanted to talk about TNA versus WWE, the Monday Night War. Now, I don't know how many people are going to agree with me on this. A lot of you might disagree, but I think a lot of you will agree that the Monday Night War is a recreation of the Monday Night War back in the 90s. TNA is nothing more than the reincarnation of WCW. And if you're wondering why I'm saying this, I will give you some valid points, some facts that will back this up as to why I think TNA is nothing more than the reincarnation of WCW. Let's see. Here are some pointers as to why I think that. Hogan is now with TNA, which took 7 years, but he is with them now. Hall and Nash have both been with TNA for a little while, but Nash more so than Hall. Hall didn't have much to do with the company, but he was there from time to time, and he did random shit, whatever. Sean Waltman, back in WCW, he was Six-Pack, and in WWE, he was X-Pac. Okay, when he was Six in the WCW, he was in the NWO. The irony of this is when NWO came back in the WWE, he joined it again, as did Shawn Michaels and Big Show. And the Big Show was in the NWO and WCW. I could be wrong on the Big Show joining, but I think he did. If so, then don't quote me on that, but let's see. Scott Hall, Waltman, and Nash are all there, and now Hogan is. Okay, I think that they're trying to recreate the NWO, but that would be a mistake. See, if Vince McMahon does not have anything to do with TNA, which I think he just might because they're constantly trading superstars like it's nothing. The wrestlers are constantly going back and forth. So, I think Vince does have a little say-so in TNA. I could be wrong, but I think he does. But, if he doesn't, if Hogan, Nash, Hall, Bischoff, and Waltman are all trying to recreate WCW and the NWO as I think they are, then there will be a lawsuit because Vince McMahon owns the name, the NWO, owns the NWO, and that just wouldn't be good. But I think they're trying to recreate the NWO because when Hogan made his TNA debut and started talking to the fans and addressing the fans, his entrance theme sounded very, very similar to the NWO entrance theme. The only difference was it just sounded a little bit different with the electric guitars on. But it sounded very similar to the NWO theme. Eric Bischoff is also with TNA now, who pretty much had all the say-sos in WCW. He pretty much ran it. And now he's trying to help Hogan run the TNA with Dixie Carter, who was actually there the entire night observing. My opinion is TNA that night on January 4th was basically a recreation of WCW, a fucked up recreation of WCW. It was really weird because you had the outsiders, Hogan, Sean Waltman, and then you had Sting in the rafters. Okay? NWO ended, I think, in 2002. I could be a little off on that. But NWO was bought out by Vince McMahon. See, Sting not the NWO, but in WCW was always in the rafters messing with people for the longest time. And then around the time that he joined the NWO Wolfpack, he stopped hanging out in the rafters. But he's back in the rafters again, as he was in WCW. Booker T is in TNA. He might be going back to WWE. I'm not sure. Scott Steiner's in TNA. Let's see here. Mick Foley. He was in WCW a brief time, but he wrestled as Cactus Jack Mantis. As of right now, that's all the WCW stars I can think of that are there. But Vince Russo did the writing for TNA for the longest time, which I still blame him to be half the reason WCW caved in the way it did. Vince Russo is an idiot when it comes to story writing. But off the fact that it's basically a recreation of WCW, I'm going to go ahead and put some points out there about the two shows and what I think was going on. That night, WWE Raw brought Bret the Hitman Hart as the guest host, which is really weird because that night, Bret Hart was claiming that he wanted closure for what happened in Montreal and then he wanted to forget about it, while TNA had the NWO members talking about getting back together and doing their old things again. It's kind of weird that both shows were talking about things that happened 10, 12 years ago. When, if you want a show to be really successful, you got to look for the future. You got to bring the younger guys up and let them have their chance. Otherwise, you're not going to get anywhere. Bret Hart ultimately got kicked in the nuts by Vince, which may have led to a storyline that will develop between the two now, even more so than it did back in the Montreal Screwjob. If so, that's retarded. Bret can't wrestle anymore. He had a stroke back in WCW. He can't do it, so why don't you just leave him out of the picture? Sure, you brought him back. The fans wanted it. That's great. But that was stupid. The ending part, I mean, stupid. Also, Jeff Hardy's back in TNA. That's cool, it's great. But why did you have to debut him like that? Honestly, Homicide took almost 10 minutes trying to climb out of that cage. And then you had, once he finally got out, in a no contest, by the way, which the audience was literally screaming, "This is bullshit," with a no contest because Homicide used a weapon. And you had Homicide just hanging there for like 10, 15 seconds. And what are the wrestlers going to think? Oh, let's just continue fighting. All the match is over. Let's just continue going at it. Let's climb after him. Okay, it's stupid. When Homicide finally exits the cage, you start hearing this music play. And then you see Jeff Hardy in the crowd. The crowd goes nuts because Jeff Hardy's back. And then Homicide attacks him. And then Jeff Hardy retaliates and hits Homicide with a chair and then a twist of fate. Okay, this was stupid. And then he climbs the frickin' cage like it's nothing. Nobody else could do it. You want to know why? Because he was fresh. He wasn't in a match. They were all wrestling around for 20-some minutes while he's completely fresh. So yeah, he can climb the cage and just sit there. It's stupid. Here's how I think Jeff Hardy should have been brought back to TNA. Hogan, at the beginning of the show, after saying, we're going to turn things around, we're going to change things, should have been like, and we signed one of the most talked about wrestlers of 2009. And then let the fans take that in. Let them wonder, who could this new superstar be? Who could this new wrestler coming into TNA be? And then near the end of the show, his music plays. And then he comes out making a bigger impact than he would have with the whole Homicide bullshit. He comes out, the audience stands up, and then Jeff Hardy is back. That would have been a better, more suitable way to bring forth Jeff Hardy's return to TNA. Also, what I thought was stupid is Hogan fucked up. Hogan had a blooper on his very first show of TNA. here's how that happened. They followed Hogan's vehicles and blah, blah, blah around for a while, and then he came in and they watched him come in, blah, blah, blah. And then when he gets in the ring finally, they're like, he actually says this, I've been in the back all night talking to the guys. As if we're honestly going to believe that after we watched you come in the building. You idiot.